say what they feel are really the best personal job will that be one to will you each have 1 minute to answer the video and you'll take it in turns to go first and go down the microphone. So if you'd like to start with Casper and introduce yourself.
I'm Casper, second year politics student. I think my attitude to the community hopefully singles me out as someone who's good for the role. I think it's essential. Like, we're living in a kind of a diverse city with lots going on, loads of people, and I think the student community often shields itself away from that. I think I want to open us up to so many people and groups and just the whole city rather than closing ourselves off. I think the students often have this attitude where we see ourselves as, just students and we can do what we want, we can be special in this sense, but I feel there needs to be, there are ways and methods by which to open ourselves up, make others feel that we can help them and they can help us in return, and make a more inclusive community within Manchester, student areas such as Gallagher and Billington, and across the kind of student community as well.
Okay, thank you. Ellen?
Hi, I'm Ellen Buckley. I'm a drama English student in my third year. The reason that I think I would be good for this role is because I very much believe in an inclusive community. We have one of the largest student populations in Europe, one of the largest and most diverse, which is fantastic, but it means we have to be more proactive about ensuring that every member has a positive student experience, they feel safe, they feel welcome, which is why I really want to work on integration between Henley international students. I also believe that students can work in the community and that's dually beneficial. It's beneficial for students and it's also beneficial for the local community. And I think it's really important that unions sees itself as a place that facilitates that relationship.
Thank you. Cara?
Hi, I'm Cara Nassif and I'm running for the Oxford Oxford. I'm in final year as well, doing business and politics. And I feel I would be the best person for the job because of my experience working with halls. I was the previous senior student at University Hall I've done a lot of inter-hall cooperation and engaging with the outer community. And I feel that's something that I want to continue on a wider scale within the university. So creating more incentives and more schemes that people can volunteer on, and especially creating the idea that you can volunteer even one time. It doesn't have to be an ongoing process, so that everyone has that one time, has that experience of volunteering one time. And I think that's important to everyone to at least contribute once to the community and engage with the wider society.
Thank you. Sarah?
Hello everyone, my name is Sark and I'm a postgraduate student studying economics. I'm running to be your community officer not only because I have a lot of experience, but also I believe that student union has a lot of potential which a lot of students they don't really realize. It's good for their own personal growth and development, and that is something that I will be working on. Part of my role will include safety and security of students, also housing and volunteering. And that is something, and for that I have a lot of good plans. That will cover that aspect of student life. Me as a workaholic and also passionate to listen to students and meeting their demands, I feel that I'm confident that under my representation, students will have an amazing time next year. In fact, the time of their lives.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to the question part of the question time. So we'll start with the first question will be directed to Casper and we'll move down the line. The first question. The local press often carries reports of student accommodation being targeted in burglaries, as well as a number of street-based robberies of Manchester-based students. What measures would you take to raise awareness of student-related crime and to help keep students safe?
I think the biggest problem is awareness in these issues. I think that the university doesn't almost want to let students know that crime is a huge issue, especially around Wellington and across other campuses. I think the main kind of, basically, the burglary happens on the student houses. Like the amount of burglary that occurs within the halls is very small amount. People need to know there needs to be a pamphlet at the beginning of the year warning people and saying that unless you safeguard, unless you do take these measures, it's likely that you will be burgled. And we all know people who have been burgled. We've had people come in our house, thankfully didn't take anything. But there needs to be a pamphlet saying how to safeguard your house, and then really, really importantly, step-by-step guide on how to insure your stuff. I think we came into this year, like our house, not having a clue how to do that. Luckily, nothing was taken, but loads of people had the problem where they hadn't had their stuff insured, things were taken, and obviously lost a lot of money.
Thank you, that's your time. Ellen?
I think it's important as community to facilitate the Residents Association as they represent the students in whatever way that they want to tackle that issue. I also think workshops in halls, because sex special schools and halls sold out, and I think workshops are a really engaging, creative way to teach people information. So there should be workshops on safety for students to go to for free. I also was told by somebody that a local community officer came to their house and told them to close their windows because that increased the chance of burglary. So I think working with the Greater Manchester Police to ensure that presence is in the community officers are there to advise students and give them something, give them like a base to talk to.
Okay, thank you. Farah?
I definitely agree with Ellen in terms of bringing police in, because I think we do have a lot of sort of awareness campaigns within Freshers Week, but because students are inundated with all this amount of information, I think it's important to have sort of continuous reminders throughout the year. So I know there was like recently police stall here at the SU, so having that on like say a monthly basis, so people have this understanding of what the crime statistics around and the dangers. And also in terms of student houses, I do know that there is a severe case of crime and burglaries in that sort of area. So the university should move, I would move towards providing a more comprehensive list of making sure that the landlords have sort of better burglar alarms, so to providing a list with those people who provide those better security measures, because not all do.
I totally agree with Casper. As he said, like there is no, we need to improve on on basically giving the information to students. So awareness is very important, and that's why I'm planning to launch student survival guide, which will be basically pages on how to stay safe, how to make your valuables stay safe, and also basically to include top tips on how to stay safe. Secondly, I also want to, as I said, awareness is important, and we do have a Facebook page, Manchester Student Safety Facebook page. I'll promote that Facebook page during freshers. I'll also be working along with RAs and the Manchester Student Council, and also police to basically to spread the awareness and also help reduce the crime, because crime is an issue for students who are living in Manchester.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to the second question. So, Ellen, do you think it's possible to overcome the town-gown divide that's plagued universities since their inception?
I do think that we can overcome that divide. I think that there should be, beginning in freshers, there should be inter-hall socials. I also think there's an issue not just between town, is that town hall?
No, it's a town-gown divide, so the amount of community and university students.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant between the different halls areas, and it was a town. So between town and university and outer communities, yes, there's definitely a really good presence with student action and going out into the community and promoting students as people who want to give back positive to the community. But I think as the present community officer has done a community day, which sort of celebrates the local community, students and locals, and I think that is a good way to target that stigmatisation. It's something that I would want to carry on definitely, because it's celebratory. It's not just about going into the community and doing work in a way that's not like sort of unfair.
Okay, thank you. Carl?
Yeah, same. I do agree that it can be overcome, and I think it's really important that it is and that we move towards that, because I mean, we sometimes feel that we're sheltered within the student community, but there is a local, big, wider community around us, and we should do our best to And I feel that possibly using halls, especially because we're like separated into different campuses, they're so close together that it's easier maybe to engage in the surrounding area. So I know like a lot of halls now have community or sort of charity representatives, and I think making sure so we work more with them to ensure that they have links to the Alpha Society, providing them the support that they need to ensure that they get done.
Yeah, I do agree that there is a gap between the student community and the local community, and that is something which I believe is part of my role, and I'll basically work on integrating the local community with the student community, and that will be done by basically by the projects such as those projects that are already run by Student Action. I'll try to increase the number of projects which are run by Student Action, and also I'll try to organize events which bring local community as well as the student community together.
It's important the community feels that something's been given back by the students, and that's why I think the policy that Charlie started this year is setting a forum up between volunteering societies and the units such as RAG and Student Action, particularly a forum between them and leaders of RAs within the community. I think that's really important. But I think what's especially important is like having face-to-face contact with students and members of the community, like neighbours basically. I think there needs to be some sort of like street party, like / car boot sale at the beginning of every year in September, something where basically students can meet their neighbours. I think that is another thing which will foster a sense of community, where you actually get to see people, talk to them, converse with them. I think there's a huge gap that needs to be bridged, and I think just having face-to-face contact is the most obvious way of kind of overcoming those issues, I think.
Okay, thank you. The next question will start with Carl. In a time of cuts and renewed austerity, why do you think the role of community officer should exist when paid positions like Mancunian editor are practically shelved?
Well, I think at the end of the day, a huge part of the university experience comes from community, and I think that you don't just pay for, say, going to your classes, going to like the academic aspect. And I think engaging, with first your halls, your wider community, volunteering, understanding about safety, these are all things that affect you every day, affect you when you go home, and you should feel comfortable that you have that outreach in society. So, for example, within your whole space, that you feel comfortable that you have the support that you need there, and likewise with the community, that you feel like you're making an effort. And I feel without the community officer, I think that's an essential role and essential to establishing those kind of things and that kind of community feel that is needed in university. And I think it definitely wouldn't be the same without it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I totally agree with Farah. As she said, like the role of community, it involves safety and security, and that is something which we as the union we try to basically give our students safety and security. So, and also the housing. I feel that a lot of students they're not really aware of when it comes to choosing their accommodation, and they need guidance, and that's where our role comes in as well. And also volunteering, and volunteering is also a very integral part of student life experience. Without the role of community, I think there would be a big gap as well. I think the role of the community is important in that aspect.
I think the Mancunian position should be paid personally, but I think the community officer position is essential in that I think you come to university, you come to a city like Manchester, and some students won't ever meet a Mancunian, like get to know one, get to know someone actually from Manchester, basically, which is really such a shame. I think me personally, I've kind of got involved with people from Manchester, in the music scene, just from going to events and things like that. It's been really great to meet people other than students, real people, some people call them, but I don't know, I think that's why the position is essential, because students need to know that there's something bigger than us. There's the real world, people living their lives and doing other things than, I don't know, having an essay a few times a term or something. I don't know, I think it's important. I think that's why it's such an essential role.
Okay, thank you. Ellen?
I think it's an essential role because I think a lot of the things that students are capable of sometimes are obstructed from that because their life becomes stressful because of certain things that they aren't properly advised about or they weren't aware of. And it's the role of the community officer to ensure that transition from home to university is as simple as possible, whether it's housing, whether it's inclusivity, whether it's where they go if they're having troubles with their degree. And then from that, once they're having a positive experience, that's when they can give back to the local community. So it's very cyclical, but I think the community officer is an essential supportive role to students so that they can have a positive experience themselves, but also have a productive experience in their own community.
The next question will start with Saad. Seeing as most students are only in Manchester for 3 years, do you think that most students even want to be part of the local community and larger community? Considering how quite often community is hostile to them.
Well, it depends. I mean, like, like a lot of students they may not agree, but they may not agree that the local community they are hostile to them. So it really depends on. It depends, but I say that like if you integrate them, like ask them to come to common grounds because we do coexist together. So I think asking them to come to the common ground through events or maybe through meetings or maybe face-to-face interaction, I think it is important. So I think there is no point of saying that they are hostile to students. I personally have been living in halls in student accommodation and I never found any local community being hostile towards us.
Okay, thank you. Casper?
I think the local community is hostile, well, not everyone, some people are hostile for a reason. I think some students bring that quite a lot of respect, but that comes from not being given a chance to maybe get to know people within the community, and I think that's why there needs to be an area, there needs to be something where people within the community and students can meet up and basically just see each other, see that they're there. I think there definitely are students who feel that they don't need to make an effort, but ultimately, like, it's becoming a person, becoming an adult. Like, you are going to be living in a house within a community where you will get to know your neighbours and you won't be a student like in a few years to come. So therefore, like, it's essential. It's part of life, getting to know the people around you. Like, just do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Casper. I think it's essential that students come here, whether it be 3 years, 4 years, if they do a PhD maybe longer, that they try to make the most of the community that surrounds them. But I think there's a bit of a stigma, and stigmas are sometimes unwarranted, and I think that my experience of the community has been not hostile, it's actually been very positive. Sabre NHS did try to fight safe traffic in A&E, and they came together with the local community and there was a huge celebration. And also the community day that's coming up, that's going to be another huge celebration. I work in Manchester, I have a job in Manchester, I have very good friends who are from Manchester who are of different ages because it's a restaurant. My experience has been positive and I think it can be positive.
Thank you. Farah?
I mean, I do think a lot of maybe the hostile aspects that you took from the community, which I don't think are representative of all of them, is possibly the way we treat the area. So, I mean, like, say, littering and noise. And I think maybe if we show a signal of respect towards, like, the outer community, that maybe we can begin to build a dialogue between them. And I think regardless of whether you're for, like, a month or, like, a year or 3 years, it's about the changing attitudes. So, I mean, it's not just about your time here. If you even begin, if you start to build a dialogue and interaction with the outer community, that's going to keep going. Regardless when you leave next year, it's a continuation with more students coming.
Thank you. The next question will start with Casper. Is there anything you would do to improve or change about the work of the current community officer?
I think one thing to do with accommodation, I think it needs to be changed, is I think a lot of people get misled by landlords and letting agents. I think it's quite sad. I think I've got countless friends who've been promised certain things. I've basically decided to rent a house on the premise that this would be fixed, this would be done, and it just hasn't been. And there's no way to hold them to account. There hasn't been a way. So I think one thing that needs to be done, there needs to be a rate your landlord / letting agent / property site, like a site or forum where people can basically share their experiences of a certain landlord and property to let people know for the future that these guys promised me that they'd fix the bathroom, but they didn't. So it's pretty likely that they won't do it for you. I mean, and like landlords need to be held to account, and at the moment they're not. I'm not saying that Charlie hasn't done a good job. She has done a great job, but I think that's like I think it's something that would benefit everyone. Basically, landlords can be terrible. Most of them are probably great, but they need some time to account. Basically.
Okay, thank you for that time. Ellen?
So I've heard this question given to every position. I have to think about it. I think that the exec, although you're given a singular roles, I think it's a very collective experience. It's a very collective job. I think that you were there in that position for quite a short time, and you begin things, you plant seeds, and then hopefully the people will take one after you and carry them on. I think that at the moment the role has become a very positive and supportive role, but it facilitates a lot of networking, a lot of forums, which makes whoever's elected into this position now, they're in a very advantageous position, which means that they can now campaign on individual issues because those networks, those forums are there in place for them, and I think that is something that I would very positively work with.
Okay, thank you. Farah?
Well, currently the Student Union are in the process of placing a new constitution into all residence halls, and there has been quite a bit of resistance from this, and talking to people from different halls, people feel like they maybe haven't had enough student input into it, so maybe I would just like to, one, bring up awareness, because a lot of people maybe are unsure of the process, and possibly build in more student input into it to ensure that people are happy with what's happening, because this is their home for a year or two or longer, and they should be glad with the results they have in the constitution.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, of course. Is there anything you would improve or change about the work of the current community officer?
Okay. Well, before I say something, I would give a lot of credit to Charlie for all the amazing work that she did, especially the first aid training. I did it, so that's like a useful set of skills that I'll be using throughout my life. But there's another thing. Like when I was talking to students in different accommodations, I realized that a lot of students, they're not really aware of the activities that are going on in the union. So that is something I'll help General Secretary in dissemination of information into halls, not only to halls, but to all the student community, whether it's North Campus, the main campus, or the South Campus. So I'll help General Secretary in dissemination of information. I'll be more visible community officer. I'll be there like on the ground talking to students and asking them their problems, and also trying to meet their needs.
Okay, thank you. The next question will be given to Ellen. As a member of the executive team, the community officer is involved in various aspects of the union outside of their immediate remit. One such aspect is the priority campaign, in which all members of the exec work to campaign on a single issue. What do you think of the priority campaign for 2014-15?
Okay, so I think in an ideal world, students would vote what the priority campaign should be, so there would be a referendum. I'm not sure how big the turnout would be then. So I think ideally, probably inclusivity and diversity. I think that I read an article recently which is telling me a lot international students don't feel welcome in Manchester, and I think that there is a lot to be done with integration between home international students, but also students who don't live at university, so home students that are home, but they live in halls, so they don't have the opportunity for social integration. So I think that is integral to a lot of students in this. So yeah, inclusivity and diversity.
Thank you, Farah.
I would say probably like trying to integrate North Campus into our sort of daily life, because I feel that people on North Campus, the people who study there, feel very much separated from us, both in studies and activities. It's sort of another world over there. You don't really go there. It's just like all your lectures are separated, and even I feel students are sometimes disadvantaged even in running for roles like the union, in which they might not have as much time to run, or they don't have the opportunity to. And I feel trying to open up more opportunities to North Campus and integrating them more would be a good way to move forward.
Thank you. Sal? Yeah. As a member of the executive team, the community officer is involved in various aspects of the union outside all members of the exec work to campaign on a single issue? Or do you think do the priority campaign for 2014-15?
Okay. Well, I mean, there are a number of issues, but like for the priority campaign, I would say student engagement is important. We, the union, we don't really enjoy a lot of student engagement. The engagement is only 10%, so that means only the 10% they decide who is going to work for the 40,000 students. So that is something I really I'll be working on as a priority, increasing the student engagement. So basically, that would involve me going to students and talking to students, going to lectures, going to accommodation and everywhere, trying to increase the student engagement in the union activities. Because I personally, I've gained so much out of engaging with the union activities, and I want other students to get the benefit as well.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
I think paying teachers properly, I think is a really big deal. I think the whole kind of teacher strikes at the moment, although hopefully that won't have to carry on until next year. I think just the respect that the university gives to students and teachers equally is really important. And I think that ties in with making campaigning cool. As like I think Matt was going for campaigns is that's one of his ideas, is getting people involved in campaigning, making it accessible, making it fun, because it is fun and it's good fun to get involved in, and yeah, basically getting more people involved in campaigns. And I think awareness of university and its policy towards paying their staff as well.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to questions that come from the audience this evening, and we'll start with Farah on this one. How do you see the relationship between student union volunteering and university volunteering, MLP? What is the difference?
Well, probably I feel that maybe student union volunteering is more student-led in the way that it's sort of organized, and so people, pick the task, they sort of bring volunteers, but it's actually students who have the sort of managerial roles, so they're taking greater action, and greater responsibility of that. Whereas things like MLP, while I mean it does have its merits, it's sort of engaging more people, into volunteering for credits. It's just sort of, this is your task, or go volunteer for a couple of hours, but you're not actually participating into a bigger scheme. You're not sort of starting your own plan. It doesn't really lead to anything.
The volunteering done for MLP is mostly for getting the number of hours registered for you to get maybe a gold award or maybe a bronze award. So that's more basic. I mean, that's more incentive based. Like you have incentive, you can get a gold award if you volunteer more. Whereas the student volunteering that is done, it's basically voluntary. There is no incentive. All people, like all the students who do student volunteering, or get involved in projects who are led by students, they're only done. They're done purely on the basis that they want to do something for the community, or they want to give something back to the community. So that's the only difference I feel between them.
Thank you.
I think the MLP is kind of quite cynical in the sense that volunteering is volunteering to doing something. It's not having giving you an incentive. It's like, is it part of a grade? You can get a grade for it, some module or something. Which I think I don't agree with that at all. I think RAG and Student Action do a lot of really good work through students who want to volunteer, and surely the best people. You want the people who are volunteering. You want I don't know what I'm trying to say. Basically, people who volunteer should be there because they want to do it, and those are the kind of people that you want around the community helping out. So I think that's why I disagree with MLB basically.
Okay, so I guess maybe the major difference, which everyone's already pointed out, is that MLP is more directed to sort of like employability after you graduate, whereas union volunteering is your own initiative. It's something that you choose to do because you want to give back to the community, and probably subconsciously you know as well that you could put it on your CV. Well, I think that maybe MLP, I mean I have no experience with it myself, some people are shy to volunteering. It's not because they don't want to do it, it's just that, they're shy to it. It's maybe more of an insecurity thing. yeah, I think you have to have a certain confidence to be able to go and help somebody else. So it might have its benefits in that respect, because it might give people who otherwise would have done it a taste of volunteering, who then will go to RAG, and so this is what I want to do now.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next question. We'll start with Saad on this one. In this role, you can encounter a lot of negativity and hostility from residents as the representative of students. How would you deal with this?
I mean, personally, I live with the motto, basically come to the common ground and then discuss your differences. So first I'll ask them to come to the common ground, like why are we even representing students? We are presenting their issues, we are presenting, we want students to have a good experience. So as I said, like you will basically talk and then like do a productive discussion rather than what we said as a negativity. I personally believe that negativity, it's okay. I mean, like it does help in producing better results. Only if you are dealing it the right way, and that is the productive way. Like you come to common ground and then you discuss the issues that are faced by the students. So yeah, that's negativity. It's not a problem for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Casper?
I think it's about really understanding, just trying your hardest to understand the issues surrounding why people are pissed off, basically. I think they're annoyed for a reason, and it's about being really understanding and trying to talk to them and find a solution, find a way in which to help them. I think that's the only thing you can do, like treat them with a lot of respect, because they deserve a lot of respect, and give your all in trying to find a solution to their problems.
Okay, thank you. Ellen?
Yes, similar to what Casper just said, I think being very diplomatic and trying to negotiate a way to come up with a solution. I think that it is warranted in some respects, the stigma that students have, but I also think it's important to problematise that, because stigmas aren't positive, they're not warranted, and I think yes, it's important to negotiate, yes, it's important, that's going to be constructive, but it's also important to say students are also quite great, and they also have problems owing to like how deregulated housing law is. So I think you have to balance those.
Okay, thank you. Farah?
I think a lot of the time you are going to encounter negativity from people, and I think a lot of the time it's just about listening to them, listening to the problems. People sometimes just want to vent, and I think that's an important aspect. And as long as you meet that with positivity and respect and a willingness to listen. And I think a lot of these people maybe have bad experiences in the past, which is what has influenced, how they're reacting to. And I think that's definitely that would definitely bring about a change in attitude. And I think even if the negativity continues, just smile and nod and move on.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to the final question for this evening, and we'll start with Casper. Manchester does amazing work already on improving access to education for those who are disadvantaged in the local community. Would you prioritise this work, and how?
Yes, I think it's important. I'm part of the Arts Emergency Group, which basically just for an 8-week period goes into local schools and will teach a class of I think it's around 12 different disciplines each week, so drama, art history, English. And I think schemes like this are really good. I think it's important that people know that as students and people who are learning things to a more advanced degree than people are learning at school, we have something which we can give back to them. We've done what they've done. We've been in school and now we've been moved into uni, and we have things that we can basically kind of give back to people in schools, and therefore as kind of past the community, we owe that to them, I think. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Ellen?
Yeah, access to education is incredibly important. I was speaking to someone recently who told me that there's a new initiative that some medics are putting on called Street Doctors, where they teach first aid to youth offenders. I've also done a module where we went into prisons and we did some drama workshops, and it was all about education in as part of their education department. That's obviously like one extreme of going into sort of areas where people are involved in criminal activity and educating them. and I think that's really, really cool. And I also think it's something that students who are in like something like the top 10% of most educated people on the planet can use that in order to bridge that inequality, so that it doesn't matter what discipline background you come from, you have access to education.
Okay, thank you. Farah?
Yeah, definitely. I do agree that access to education should remain a priority. I mean, there are currently loads of mentoring schemes throughout, charity schools such as Reach Out, and I think a lot of that maybe can be done through two ways. For example, increasing participation, so through engaging calls, for example, like I said, the community or charity, but also sort of maybe expanding the sort of roles that you could do to volunteer. So it wouldn't just be about teaching, you could do like more admin, more creative roles, helping out plays. I mean, for example, we recently had a concert, like a charity singing concert, and you could help out that aspect. So if you open it up to a broader range of roles, not just teaching, for example, or mentoring, then maybe you can attract more people to these positions.
Thank you. Sir? Yeah, awesome. Manchester does amazing work already on improving access to education for those who are disadvantaged in the local community. Would you prioritise this work and how?
I mean, schemes like this, they are definitely important. It would be like one of the priorities, I'll basically collaborate the like-minded societies with the like-minded groups that are in the local community who are working towards spreading the education among the ones who don't have the facilities. So basically, my main focus would be to bring the like-minded people together and then work on that. So probably the societies, adult support societies, who such as Teach First Society, and there are many others as well, who basically promote education. So yeah, I'll support societies in order to meet this priority.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to the end of the question time. I'd like to thank all the candidates who are up here at the moment for the role of community officer. I'd also like to thank the women's officer candidates who were here earlier and the audience who participated with their questions. So thank you very much.